Hi there, everyone. Today is the 4th of March. For some of you, you may realise that tomorrow, the 5th of March, is Climate Coaching Action Day. So at Guildford Coaches, we thought about what we could do and decided there was nothing better than to talk to our very own Shirley Wardell about this subject. For those of you that don't know Shirley, she's a coach that focuses on Nancy Kline's thinking environment, and she's also a town councillor for Godalming, representing the Green Party. So I know that for you, Shirley, climate change is right up there in terms of your priorities and what you're passionate about. So I wanted to catch up with you today to really have a discussion about what you think our responsibilities are as coaches to our clients in relation to climate change.
Thank you, Mel. That is such a great question. And for me, the climate change question can be quite overwhelming and terrifying, and that isn't really helpful. So what I would say our first responsibility to our clients is to have a kind of robust optimism, even when it seems very unlikely that we will solve this. At the moment, the Earth's trajectory is to 4% warming, which is pretty much disastrous for all of us. And even though that pathway is at the moment predicted, having in yourself a robust logical optimism based on your view of human nature, based on your observations of the amazing things that human beings have done up till now, will really help your conversation with your clients who want to contribute to climate change. I think there's other responsibilities, and I think if I may steal your thoughts here, Mel, when we were talking in our preamble, you said you need to know what you think about it, what your thoughts are, and how you are relating to climate change, and how you're getting some support for that. Because if you go to some of the resources that scientists have put out, the chances are you're going to feel despair, and that grief needs to be faced. And it's one of the things in a book that I've mentioned that I think you're going to put as a link, called The Future We Choose. If there's anything that a coach does for their clients, they help them guide and choose their future. And this book helps you know how you might choose different futures. So I think it could be helpful for a coach to know that. Now, coming back to your regular responsibilities as a coach, it actually doesn't matter what you think about it, except that you have some composure, some optimism when your clients bring their thoughts forward. Because I'll give you some examples we chatted about earlier. So I have a client who's an airline pilot, and she is in distress. She's got 2 children. She wants the planet to survive. And every day she increases global warming. They're very dependent on her wage. So when she suggests she give up her job, I don't want to look too shocked. Yeah. I want to really get that this is important enough to her that she might want to live a very, very poor life. So that's one example that comes to me that is no different from any other scenario we might find ourselves in.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's the point, isn't it? Is that it's often as coaches, we spend a lot of time and effort thinking about what are our triggers? What are the things that we might go into a coaching session and our coachee will say something that will trigger a response in us. And we spend a lot of time and effort making sure that when we go in, we are in that place of neutrality, so we can take that on. I think for me personally, if I look, I know what I think about climate change. I know what I'm trying to do, but have I actually thought about it in terms of, if I was in a coaching situation and I was triggered, what might be my triggers, and what do I need to do to deal with those so that I am still in that place of neutrality, that I can serve my client best. And I would say that, have I done that? Probably not, if I'm honest.
Yes, and thank you, Mel, because the kind of categories that come to mind in that process would be, how would you react to your clients saying that they're going to join Extinction Rebellion and be arrested? Could you be neutral about that when you're worried that they may have some career repercussions? Could you encourage them to fulfill their what they might perceive as their destiny to do that? whilst being terrified of it yourself. So that comes to mind. Could you, in the case of my airline pilot client who's extremely worried about her children, could you avoid being judgmental of her going up in that plane every day and killing a polar bear? Because those are her words, by the way, not mine. She says, every day I go up, I kill a polar bear. And that's how she feels. So how do we support her through that? I still want her to be proud of her achievements, because she became a pilot about 30 years ago, before enough attention was being paid on climate change. So how do I support her and make her still feel proud? She's not a bad person.
Yeah.
But she's finding herself in a state of conflict. And
Yeah.
so that's another question of how do we perhaps provide some comfort in a state of conflict? I'd be interested to hear what you think about that.
God, that's a challenge, isn't it? Oh. Am I meant to be interviewing you?
Okay.
It's really good, and I think that is it's an important question, isn't it? And I think we would apply the same process that we would apply to anything that where we were offering support, and it's helping our clients work through that and find their own sense of peace and way to align, and have those strategies that feel like, even though something may not be sitting quite right for them now, they are doing what they can. Yes. Because life is not perfect. It is a journey. But I think also really the thing for me about climate change, and I've had this conversation actually with my daughters, because I've raised things and said, right, we need to start doing this, we need to start doing that. And they've shocked me, actually, because considering they are from the younger generation, they've said, well, it doesn't really make any difference, does it? And I said, well, it won't make any difference to me, but it will to you and your children and your grandchildren. And it's that whole idea that those little steps, sometimes when we've got a big problem, those little steps, you think, well, I'm not making any progress, but actually you are. And this situation here actually perfectly demonstrates the power of the individual. And if we all make tiny little changes, there are big changes that needed for sure, but we can all impact by what we do. So I think getting them to explore that and find some comfort in that would probably be my route through.
Well, I think individual changes give a message. To give you the bad news, climate change is not solvable by individual effort. But there is something brilliant about individual effort. So I don't want to decry that point, because I really it's very important, because what you're doing is you're giving government and policymakers a message that you are prepared to make some sacrifices, and they will be paying attention to that because they want to be elected. And so if people are eating more plant-based food, are flying less, are showing through their personal behavior that they are prepared to make the sacrifices, the politicians will pay more attention. So if you think that through your behavior you're communicating a message that you care and you're prepared to take some of the weight on your shoulders, I think that communicates a very, very important message. And I think for our children to say to them, the policy changes we need to happen, which are massive, will only get done if the politicians think that we are serious and we will take the pain, and it may not actually be that painful, living without certain plastics, my plant-based diet is only 80% plant-based. There's still some nice animal protein on that I enjoy to eat. But I suppose it's having that balance, but also not to kid ourselves. We don't want people making decisions that we're coaching that think my one thing is going to change everything. But to say, okay, so what might change? Yes, you're communicating a message. Yes, write to your MP. Yes, go and support other activists, whether that's Extinction Rebellion, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, World Wildlife Fund, it doesn't matter who, but go and support them when they run an event. The numbers there, politicians will be paying attention. And if somebody wants to know what can I do to really make a difference, you do need to have that information. If my airline pilot. Client said to me, Shirley, I can't give up my job, but I want to do everything else that I can.
Yeah.
She might depend on me for a source of information.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, the coach giving information might be required, or at least just a place to go. I would feel I can comfort her there by saying, yeah, it's pretty disastrous that you're going to be having to earn your living this way, but it's not your fault.
Yeah.
So these are the places you could go and look for everything else you can do until she retires.
And are there any sort of resources that you think actually these are, if somebody's, you know, watching this video and thinks actually, yes, I want to go and have a look at some more, are there any resources that you think actually that would be a good starting place for?
There's so much good stuff. I mean, most of the articles by George Monbiot from The Guardian you can enjoy and know that they're well resourced. The thing that I found most valuable to people who are not knowledgeable has been the Climate Assembly, which has been set up by 6 parliamentary select committees to get ordinary people to pay some attention and give some decisions, sort of like a jury. They're going to say, looking at all the data on the problem and all the data on what we could do about it, this is what we 110 randomly selected human beings that represent Britain are doing. It's happening at the moment, and I know you've got a link for that, so that would be great. It takes some time, but the reason I like that source is because they're talking to you as if you know very little about climate change, and the language is so accessible and the resources are impeccable, and it has been set up by our parliament, so you know it has some credibility in terms of its. And then the other things are just read Jonathan Porritt, The World We Made.
Okay.
And if you get a chance, I haven't read this book that I told you about, The Future We Choose. Those are the things that I would pay attention to at the moment.
Okay. And in terms of coaching specifically, I know through the research that I've done before we spoke today, is the Climate Coaching Alliance is a really good resource for coaches, and actually in support of the Action Day, they have 24 hours of conversation happening from midnight to midnight on the 5th of March. So the conversations are happening on the hour. So I will post that link in the comments afterwards. And there's also climatechangescoaches.com for people that want to have a look at more resources. But just one quick question, final question before we end the conversation, which has been fantastic. Bringing it back to me and my business, if you had to give me 3 top tips that you say these are the ones that would have the biggest impact in my small sphere of the world, what would they be?
Thank you. Fly less, number 1.
Okay.
Absolutely fly less. Travel less all round. Do this lovely Skype thing, which works beautifully, or Zoom, or whichever product you use. And when you're booking events, order vegetarian food. You know, it doesn't have to go vegan, but everyone can eat, you know, meat eaters can eat vegetarian food. And that way you are reducing, you know, the impact on the planet. So those are the things that I would do short term. Okay.
Fantastic. And really easy. Well, the travel maybe not so much, although with the current coronavirus, I know with my other hat on, a lot of speakers, events are being cancelled, and there's lots and lots going on at the moment about how can we look at different models like we're doing right now, and actually could people still get the benefits? So, you know, from different sources things will come, and actually it's forcing us to look at, right, how can we keep business turning over? So,
absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, keep safe, wash your hands, and speak to you soon, Mel.
Yeah, lovely to talk with you. Thank you so much, Shirley. Catch up with you soon. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
You're still recording. Good.
I'm all done. Thanks, Shirley.
Thanks. Bye-bye, Mel. See you.
It'll go up later today.
Lovely. Thank you.
You.